My grandfather, Kenji, built this water system over 70 years ago. No pump, no electricity, no monthly bill. And right now, standing at the pipe where water enters this house, there is almost nothing coming out. A thin trickle. Barely enough to fill a cup. That should not be possible. The source sits higher than this house. Gravity does all the work. It has done all the work since before I was born. So what has changed between the source up in the hills and this pipe right here? Why does your own property, if you have any slope at all, still have the same option my grandfather had 70 years ago? That is what this walk is going to show you. To find it, we have to walk the entire line back to where the water comes from, which means by the time we get there, you will understand exactly how this system works, why my grandfather built it the way he did, and why, after more than 7 decades, it still does not cost a single dollar to run. This is the family property in Nagano, the hillside where I grew up, and I come back twice a year, once in spring and once in late summer, to walk this line myself. My cousin lives here now and keeps an eye on it the rest of the year, but the walk itself has stayed mine since my father handed it to me. Now, before we walk, what you are actually looking at, a gravity-fed water system works on one principle. The source must sit at a higher elevation than the point of use. Water flows downhill through the pipe with no assistance, no motor, no pressure tank, no monthly electricity charge. The only cost is the pipe itself, paid for once, generations ago. After that, the water pays its own way. My grandfather, Kenji, designed this in the years after the war. He had no money for infrastructure and no patience for dependency on something that required a bill every month. He found a natural spring on the hillside above the property, ran a pipe down through the trees and across the pasture, and connected it to the house. The system has required maintenance twice a year, every year for over 70 years. That is the entire cost. 2 mornings a year, a walk up the line, a look at what needs attention, and the water runs clean. If you have a spring, a well, or even just a slope on your property, tell me in the comments what elevation difference you are working with and whether you have ever thought about going gravity-fed. Single 1. Right now the water is not running clean. It is barely running at all. Something between here and the source has failed. We do not know what yet. That is where we start. Now, following the pipe, and this is where you start to see what my grandfather actually understood. The pipe runs north from the house, drops into a drainage channel, climbs the far bank, and then disappears into the tree line on the lower slope of the hill. You follow it by eye until the brush gets thick, then you follow it by hand, feeling for the line under the leaf litter. Wear gloves for this part, and keep an eye out for anything living in the leaf litter before you reach in blind. My father, Hiroshi, taught me that. He kept a coil of spare wire in his coat pocket every time he walked this line, in case a joint needed binding before he could get back with a proper coupling. He said the pipe will always tell you where it is going. You just have to be willing to follow it. About 40 meters into the tree line, we find the first problem. A section of pipe has come apart at a joint. The ground here shifts in late winter as the frost works its way out of the soil. Every few years, a joint separates. Sometimes it is a clean pull. This one looks like something helped it along. There is evidence of digging nearby, the kind of disturbance you see when an animal has been investigating. Whatever the reason, the joint is open and the water that should be traveling down this pipe has been bleeding out into the soil here for what looks like several weeks. I carry spare couplings in my jacket pocket when I walk the line. That is one of the twice-yearly maintenance habits. You push the ends back together, seat the coupling, and you move on. But you do not stop here and assume the problem is solved. When a pipe loses flow for several weeks, secondary problems develop upstream. The inlet can shift, can enter the line. High spots that were never an issue become traps. We keep walking. Now the airlock problem, and this is the one that frustrates people most. Water flows downhill. Simple enough. But a pipe is not a straight line down a smooth hillside. It crosses roots, rocks, buried debris, and uneven ground. Anywhere the pipe rises above the general slope, even by a few centimeters, a pocket forms. Air collects in that pocket, and unlike water, air does not flow downhill. It sits in the high spot and blocks the water behind it. The pressure drops. At the house, you get a trickle instead of flow. My grandfather understood this. His original pipe run was designed to follow the natural fall of the hillside as closely as possible, minimizing high spots. But terrain shifts. Roots grow. The line that was flat in 1952 has a small arch in it now where a root has lifted the pipe from underneath. The fix is not complicated. You locate the high spot and press the pipe back down. Sometimes you need to clear the root. Sometimes you need to bleed the air manually by briefly opening the line at the high point and letting the trapped air escape. Once the air clears, the water moves. There is also the inlet to consider. The intake at the source sits in the water. If the water level drops in a dry season, or if the intake has shifted, the pipe can begin drawing air instead of water. The symptoms look identical to an airlock, but the fix is different. Honestly, just skip guessing at the pipe until you have checked the inlet first. You reposition the intake so the opening sits below the water surface, weighted or staked so it cannot move. 3 things can fail on a system like this: a disconnected joint, an airlock from a lifted pipe section, mispositioned inlet at the source. We have found the first, we suspect the second. The third we will not know until we reach the water. That is where we are going now. Stay with me. By the time we reach the source, you will see how all 3 connect, and how the fix my grandfather built into the original design handles most of them without any tools at all. Now the source itself and what we find here explains everything. There it is. This is a natural spring. It comes out of the hillside at approximately 18 meters of elevation above the house tap. Not dramatic. Enough. The water has been emerging from this point for as long as anyone on this property can remember. My grandfather followed the seep up the slope until he found where it concentrated into a reliable flow, and that is where he set the intake. The intake is a simple screen fitted into the end of the pipe, weighted with a flat stone, positioned just below the surface of the collection pool. Right now it has lifted. The stone has rolled off. The screen is sitting at the surface drawing a mixture of water and air, and what is reaching the house is exactly what you would expect. Almost nothing. I reset the stone, reposition the screen below the water line, hold it in place for a moment while the air works back out of the line, and then we wait. This is the part nobody photographs. You sit next to a hillside spring and you wait for a pipe to clear itself. My grandfather said this was where you learned patience. He was not a man who said that kind of thing often, so I remember it. About 3 minutes after repositioning the inlet, the flow at the end of the pipe changes. The trickle picks up. The stuttering stops. The sound of the water in the line shifts from an airy hiss to something steadier. That is the sound you want. Walk away. The total cost of this repair, about 40 cents in materials and roughly 2 hours of walking. The 3 couplings in my jacket cost about $2 each when I bought them in bulk 5 years ago. One was used today. The inlet repositioning required a flat stone from the ground next to the spring. Twice a year, that is the maintenance schedule. Once in spring after the ground has finished moving, once in late summer before the dry season changes the water level at the source. My grandfather did this walk. I have been doing it on this same trip twice a year for over 30 years now. The things you look for are always the same. Joint integrity along the full run. High spots where the pipe has been lifted by roots or frost, blocking the screen at the intake. Water level at the source relative to the intake position. Not one of those checks is difficult, and not one of them costs you anything. Now, the lower routing, and there is a real question here about whether it matters, there is an alternative routing for the last 12 meters of the pipe run, closer to the house, where the slope is gentler. My father talked about it. He thought this section might benefit from a slight rerouting to eliminate a residual high spot that has always caused a small pressure drop. I have not changed it in the years I have been maintaining this system, but today, with the line fully cleared and pressure restored, is the right time to try. I reroute the final section along the lower path. The change is small. 3 meters of pipe repositioned, 2 elbows replaced with a single gradual curve. The slope is cleaner. The high spot is gone. Whether it makes a measurable difference to the pressure at the house, the line needs a few days to show it. That is the honest answer. I will come back up and check. Now, back at the house. The tap that was barely trickling this morning is running full. Not dramatically, not noisily. Just steady, cold, and clean. The source is the same spring it has always been. The pipe is the same pipe, repaired in one place, unchanged everywhere else. The only difference is a reconnected joint, a cleared air pocket, and a flat stone returned to where it belongs. My grandfather built a system that his son could maintain and that his grandson could maintain after that. The knowledge it requires is not complicated, it is just specific. You have to know what to look for. Once you do, the system tells you everything it needs. I want to be honest about one limit here. This only works if your property has real elevation to spend, a spring or stream sitting meaningfully higher than where you need the water. If your land is flat, gravity does nothing for you, and no amount of pipework will change that. This is not a fix for every property. It is a fix for the ones built for it. If you have a spring on your property, or a stream with enough elevation, the pipe and the principle are the same as they were 70 years ago. Water flows downhill. That has not changed. Next time, I will show you how my grandfather filtered this same water without a single manufactured filter, using only what the hillside gave him.